We are doing one of my favorite videos today, and it's the UFC 311 card builder. If you follow this channel for a little bit now, you know I love my card builders. There are a lot of fights that end up on these card builders that do come to fruition at the time that I predict them to come to. There are also a lot that don't. It's hard to predict every single one, but I do the best I can. I'm going to make this reasonable. I'm going to make it a good card. It's a pay-per-view. It looks like it's happening in Los Angeles. There's also potential that it gets switched up to Vegas. I've seen those two different things. 312 is in Australia, so that did come into mind in matchmaking some of this. I did originally want to see Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis on this card, but I switched that up because I think they'll do that in Australia on 312. I want to say it's in Sydney, but we'll get to 312. There's going to be a matchmaker coming out with that in a couple of weeks as well, so make sure you stay tuned there. But I'm done yapping. Let's get into it. It is the UFC 311 card builder in what I'm presuming to be Los Angeles, California, which would be awesome. Shout out to Pointer Brothers, very good friends of mine, and maybe I'll go out there for that card. We'll see. If you guys buy me tickets, fuckers. Let's go right up to the prelims. Starting it off, listen, guys, these first four fights are not going to, knock your socks off. When have the first four fights of the early prelims ever knocked anyone's socks off outside of UFC 300 where they deliberately made it so that way every fight would be awesome? Even then, we still got fucking Marina Rodriguez and Jessica Andrade. So, let's get it started with Carly Judice versus Eunice Dubin? I don't fucking remember her name. Low-level shit women's fight, but Eunice Dubin has a little bit of hype behind her because she had that crazy knockout on the Contender Series, and Dana White's reaction went viral, and everyone made memes about it where it was like John Jones dancing, and then Dana White. It would cut to Dana White's reaction to this fight, like he was reacting to John Jones because, he's got that thing for John Jones. But yeah, I think this is a good layup fight for Eunice Dubin. Carly Judice is 3-2. She looks terrible. I know she has a mean mug, so maybe she's a nasty girl in the octagon, Joe Rogan, but she's not. People forget, man. Eunice Dubin, big knockout, big underdog. People forget. Good low kicks. Steel cups. All right, taking it too far. I get it. Eunice Dubin, Carly Judice is going to open up the card. That's really all I have to say about it. We're going to move on to another fight that's not overly exciting. It's Dylan Budka versus Torres Finney, another Contender Series guy here in Torres Finney. I think we're going to see a couple of Contender Series guys start to open up the prelims of big fight nights and pay-per-views just to get the name out there. Torres Finney has the only guy with 3 wins in the Contender Series, 1 by decision, 1 by submission, 1 by knockout. Then he finally gets his contract. I think you give him a layup of a fight in Dylan Budka. Now, I don't think that Torres Finney's this extremely good fighter that's going to make it far in the UFC, but I do think they want to slow roll him a little bit, and I just tried to think of the worst guy off the top of my mind at middleweight, and it was Dylan Budka. This guy has wrestling credentials, but I saw him get ragdolled by Andre Petrosky. Not Armin Petrosian, even though I bet Armin Petrosian could even take this guy down. And then Dylan Budka has no way to get back up, so I do think that the UFC would look at this fight and say, yeah, this is a good way to get Torres Finney in the UFC, get him a win, and then an excuse to cut Dylan Budka, a disgrace to the sport, who doesn't train and try and get better ever. Moving on, I kind of like this fight. This is one for the hardcores in terms of an early prelim. It's Austin Hubbard, who's coming off a win against Alex Hernandez, versus Markel Medeiros. I think Markel Medeiros is going to be a good fighter, man. I think this guy has potential to be top 15 one day. Listen, we got to get him there, though. I think an Austin Hubbard fight's a very intriguing one. Austin Hubbard's a guy coming off a loss against Alex Hernandez, but he went out there and he made it to the tough finals. Again, lost to Kurt Holobaugh, not a great look, but has looked better and improving. He's training with Bilal Muhammad, so that's a name in the corner that, can bring some attention to this fight. And Markel Medeiros, I think, is a stud. I think he's a good fighter. I think he's very athletic. I think he's fast. And I think this is a good matchup for him. Winnable for both guys, but it's actually intriguing. Now we're going to move on to a fight that has already been made for this card, and it is Muin Gafurov versus Rinya Nakamura. Rinya Nakamura, undefeated Eastern Asian. I believe he's Japanese. Definitely Japanese with a name like Nakamura, not Chinese. Undefeated, talented guy, great wrestler. Would be very interested to see how he does against Moon Gafarov here. It's going to be a good fight. I actually think these guys will scrap and we'll be forced to see what Rinya Nakamura can do in later rounds against guys that will not let him impose his will in the easiest way possible. But you already know about this fight probably if you've been looking into it, so we're going to move on to another fight that I'm going to make. This is where we're going to start turning up the heat a little bit. Julian Erosa versus Pat Sabatini. Listen, both guys coming off wins. Sabatini off a JSP, Erosa off a submission win against Christian Rodriguez. I think both were first-round submissions, one by guillotine, one by rear naked. Sorry, thought I had the hiccups coming. Maybe it was just a burp. Interesting. But I think both guys are very good grapplers. I think Erosa's got the edge in striking, but it's not like he's this crazy good striker. I'd be interested to see how this does. Pat Sabatini is a elite level jiu-jitsu specialist. I think his grappling is top of the tier at unranked lightweight. And I think Julian Erosa also has very, very good grappling and long limbs, so it would be tricky, but it's an intriguing fight. Two guys in the featherweight division, both coming off wins. A win over each other can start to put them up into that top 25 area where they can look at, one or two more fights before going into the rankings. Julian Erosa, Pat Sabatini, I think that's the fight to make. Yeah, I don't know about rankings for either of these guys yet, so I just think it's the right matchup to make, guys. Listen, if you look at it, it makes sense. I don't want to spend too much time justifying it. I think that wastes a lot of time in these videos, so I promise I'll stop doing that. We're going to move on to a rematch between Angela Hill and Marina Rodriguez. Listen, both ladies coming off of losses, questionable losses as well, but both like to strike. I think this would be a much more fun fight than most of the fights at strawweight because they throw high volume, they throw high output, they're tough. And they're going to stand on the feet. We're not going to get any shitty, boring, stalling out grappling in this fight. I fucking hope. And the rankings numbers are close to each other, so it makes all the sense in the world. Marina Rodriguez, Angela Hill, rematch. Moving on. I think I cooked with this one. Fares Ignacio Bahamondes, both coming off crazy flash knockouts. Pull back right hand in the first round over Manuel Torres for Ignacio Bahamondes, and has really good wins on his record. He has the Christian Yagos win. He lost to Ludovic Klein, but again, Ludovic Klein's very good. And then Fares just lit up the French crowd with a knockout of the year candidate in a knee knockout win over Matt Frivola. I think the two of these guys are one win away from getting a ranked fight. Put them against each other, winner gets number 15 ranked, or fight someone for the 15th ranked spot once we get RDA the fuck out of the lightweight rankings because he's going to be at welterweight his entire fucking career from now on. Don't know what the UFC thinks they're doing there, but this is a fight for the hardcores right here. Ignacio Bahamondes, Fares this is one of my more proud matchups. This fight bangs, dude. These guys are going to stand on the feet, elite level strikers, and both coming off finishes. There's hype in this fight, and I'm very excited for it. Co-main event, this fight's already been announced. Co-main event. Co-headliner of the prelims, Charlton Almeida and Sergey Spivak. It's a great fighter. I'd love to fight him. Not good at the Aspinall one yet. We'll get there. I'm still a little stuffed up, so, we'll work on that. But Charlton Almeida, Sergey Spivak's already been made. I don't think you can put this on the pay-per-view where it will kill sales because neither of these guys are entertaining to watch. Neither of these guys can sell a pay-per-view or even fucking speak the language to get on a press conference. So I think Almeida Spivak is a intriguing fight. And the winner is going to start looking at a title eliminator bout after this, so that way they can fight Tom Aspinall. But both need two more wins, one over each other, and then one after that gets them a title shot against Aspinall. Listen, if this was the number one contenders fight, then you put it on the main card just to promote it more, but it's not. You don't want people to fall asleep during this, and these guys are just not the most exciting in the octagon. So, Charlton Almeida, Sergey Spivak is co-headlining the prelims, and then we're doing a Legends fight in the headliner, and it's Donald Cowboy Cerrone who said he's wanted to come back versus Tony Ferguson. I know this already happened. Before you guys go crazy and go, you don't know this already happened, casual, what did you just start watching? I know this happened. But listen, Donald Cowboy Cerrone started going downhill once Tony Ferguson beat him, and Tony Ferguson hasn't won a fight since he beat Cowboy Cerrone. So, I think it makes all the sense in the world. Rematch these two, give it a lot of extra time, so that way when this goes to a decision and they slug it out, I bet they'll have a fun fight, Legends fight. I want to do these Legend fights, and both retire after. both get their beautiful UFC montage, better than Esparza got. They better get better than the Karate Hottie got. You give these two what they want, and that is a montage in the perfect retirement scenario. They fight each other. They both got a lot of mutual respect for each other. And they both get a big retirement montage. Both get to kneel down in the octagon. Fans get teary-eyed. Like, this is a great way to invoke emotion before we get to an awesome main card. Listen, you finish this with Cowboy Cerrone and Tony Ferguson retiring together on the prelims. This was already going to be a card for the history books. We're going to move on to the main card. First fight. Joel Alvarez gets his jump into the rankings against Jalen Turner. Listen, Jalen Turner's coming off. He's 1-3 in his last 4 fights. The guy just lost to Moicano at UFC 300, got finished. Before that, he destroyed Bobby Green, who's also not ranked anymore. A lot of respect for those guys, though, and that was the worst stoppage in UFC history. Except for maybe Priscilla Cachoeira and Valentina Shevchenko. That one was pretty fucking bad, too. But before beating Bobby Green, you have 2 other losses here for Jalen Turner. You have the Dan Hooker loss, which was a close scrap, but it was a loss. And then the Mateusz Gamrot fight, which was a loss. Close fight, loss. The only guy that he's won in the past, 2 years here is Bobby Green. And he's like subbed Brad Riddell too. Like nothing too crazy here. He's got to defend his ranking spot. Joel Alvarez deserves a jump in the rankings after the win streak that he's started to put together, and the only loss that he has of recent memory is Arman Tsarukyan, who is fighting for a title very, very soon. Very soon. You'll see. I think this is a great fight to make. You have 2 weight bullies, 6'3" in the division. Jalen Turner's definitely got the edge in the striking. Joel Alvarez definitely has the advantage in the grappling, but neither are slouches in either area to the point where, like Jalen Turner can defend submissions at times and is not incompetent on the ground. Joel Alvarez is not incompetent at the feet. He can hang in there. He's got some pop too. This is the fight to make. Jalen Turner, Joel Alvarez. It will be a slugfest. It will be a war. It will get the crowd ready for what's to come. And what's to come is a Legends fight between Henry Cejudo, and if you guys have been watching this channel for the past couple weeks, you know who I want Cejudo fighting in a Legends fight, and it is the King of Rio, Jose Aldo. We have deserved this fight for so long. When Jose Aldo returned, he should have been booked against Henry Cejudo, but they gave him the Martinez tune-up fight. Okay, he goes in there and he tunes up Martinez. Don't get me wrong, and I'm a big J-Mart guy. Tunes up J-Mart, and then they should have been like, okay, now he gets the Cejudo fight. No, they give him the Mario Batista fight, which he wins and gets robbed by the judges because for some reason, control matters when it's in... I actually don't even know why the UFC would have wanted Mario Batista to win, so I don't think they did. I just think the judges didn't know what they were doing this night at UFC 307. Fucking shit judging, dude. Yeah, dude, Jose Aldo versus Henry Cejudo needs to happen. Aldo does deserve his jump up in the rankings for how disrespected he got in the terms of the matchups that he received already. Give him the Cejudo fight, and if he wins, it's #1 contender fight. Fuck off. I don't care what anyone else has to say. He deserves it. He beat Batista. He beat Martinez. He beat Chito Vera. He beat Rob Font, and that's just in bantamweight. Not talking about being one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time at featherweight, even though I still think it's Volk. Yeah, man. I'm sick with how disrespected Jose Aldo's been getting. We're going to take care of it the right way. I'm going to get this in the right fucking spot, okay? I'm done doing this because now it's just taking over control of my mind. Yeah, Aldo Cejudo, 4th fight on the card. This is great. And if this is on the 4th spot on the card, it's not even the feature fight, this is going to be a banger. And I can let you know right now, Dan Hooker's on the feature fight. Now, I know that we're talking about 312 in Australia, but I think that Dan Hooker is so high in the rankings that nobody that would be challenging him wants to go to Australia and gets half of their paycheck taxed in a fight that they may lose to some judges here. So, I think Dan Hooker gets the Dustin Poirier rematch. Come on, man. Tell me this isn't great. If Hooker wins against Poirier, then he can get like a Sarukian fight, or he's possibly in the title fight picture. If he loses, then he gets back in the Paddy Pimblett picture, the Moicano picture, one of these other guys down there that he can fight. I think it's a good way. Gets in the Gaethje picture. And Poirier, listen, he said he wants the fight with Gaethje to be his final fight, but he also said he wants 2 fights. So he needs 1 more. I was thinking maybe Colby, But I don't think Colby and Dustin are going to be what happens, because Colby's not going to come down to 155, and I can't see Dustin going up to 170 doing a fight and then cutting back down to 155 to fight Gaethje. I think that would be miserable. I think he stays there at 155. I think he earns himself some kind of pay-per-view points or something, fights Dan Hooker, and helps sell out this pay-per-view even more. This is a great feature fight. And we've seen, listen, I know that recently we've seen Dustin in main events and co-mains only, but when you go back to November, he submitted Michael Chandler on the feature fight where there was 2 title fights. I think he's down to do this, and I think that this is a position where the UFC can look and go, listen, we're going to do a BMF tournament, and it's going to be spread out throughout cards this year. Dustin Poirier, Dan Hooker, we're going to make this a 5-rounder, and if you win, you get to fight for the BMF title against the winner of a Gaethje, or they might be doing an even bigger tournament against the winner of like a Max Holloway, and they're not going to rematch Gaethje again. I don't know what they're going to do yet, but you could make this like a potential number 1 contender for a BMF belt here. So Dustin Poirier, Dan Hooker, great fight, make it happen. Moicano's an option too, but Moicano and Poirier aren't fighting each other, and I don't think that's going to happen on this card. So we're going to go with Poirier versus Dan Hooker. Dustin Poirier saying he has a fight signed. It's not going to be against Gaethje, because Gaethje won't fight until like March or April, and he wouldn't have announced that this early. It's going to be Poirier. I'd like to see Poirier Hooker too, 5 rounds, BMF contender fight. Moving on to the co-main event. Merab defends his title against Umar. Listen, this fight cannot sell out a pay-per-view on its own. Don't care what you put on the card with it. It's not selling out the pay-per-view on its own. Merab has no sellability. Umar is 1 win in the top 15, and he can't sell a fucking fight yet. Listen, if Sandhagen's the A side of the card of the main event, that's a little tough. And I'm a big Sandhagen guy, but I'm gonna go with Merab and Umar as the co-main event of this fight, and the reason why is Arman and Islam 2 is gonna be the main event. These 2 train together. They'll be in training camp the whole time together, working hard, grinding it out, fighting on the same card here in Los Angeles. I don't think either of these guys will go fight in Australia. I think they'll do the US or they'll do a Saudi/Abu Dhabi fight. And I think this is a great card to put together. Look at this. You have 2 title fights. It's Umar Nurmagomedov and Islam Makhachev. Both guys train at the same gym. 1 challenging for the title, 1 defending their title. Arman Tsarukyan is obviously the next challenger. He is the most deserving, and Umar Nurmagomedov's just going to get the fight against Merab. Merab and Umar cannot sell a pay-per-view by themselves. They're going to need the help of an Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukyan and a Dustin Poirier versus Dan Hooker. That's going to help it a lot. I think these are the fights to make, guys. It really is, because then you're looking at February, and it's like, all right, Arman versus Islam at 312 in Australia? They're not going to do that. Islam only went to Australia so he could fight Volk specifically. Umar's probably not going to go there with Merab either. Like, I don't think these guys want to go there. So I think they're going to do this in the US. And if they don't do it in January and they're not going to go to Australia in February, then all of a sudden we're looking at Ramadan and we're missing these guys. Not only are we missing these guys for the end of March through the end of, the end of February through the end of March, we're not going to get them in April or maybe even until May. And because, listen, they're not going to train throughout Ramadan to get prepared for a fight right after it. It's just not going to happen. We don't see that happen. It's kind of hard to ask, especially when you're fasting like that. So you're not going to have them do that. The earliest we'd be looking at is May, and that puts Arman Tsarukyan out for 13 months. That puts Islam Makhachev out for 12 months. And listen, that's more reasonable for Merab and Umar, but I'm sick of these guys fighting once a year, dude. Turn around, defend your fucking title, and that's how you become great. You don't become great by holding onto the title for X amount of days because you didn't fucking fight anyone. Islam, I'm a big fan. It's time to fight. I'm sick of watching you wait out the entire time. It is time to fight. Prove that you're one of the greatest. Prove that you're the pound for pound. I believe you are, but Pereira with one more win is going to fucking pass you because you are pulling a John Jones and just fighting once a year. John Jones doesn't even fight once a year, so I don't want to disrespect Islam like that, but I'm getting real sick of these fucking champions not fighting. It's getting really fucking annoying, and I get Islam's hurt. I get it. He would have fought on the Abu Dhabi card, but listen, he fought Volk, knocked him out in a round, and then waited until June, 8 months later, to fight Poirier, who wasn't even the most deserving contender at the time. And he goes to war with him, beats him, and now he's hurt, and he's not going to be able to fight until 2025, which, again, at the beginning of 2025, it gets dicey. If you're not doing it in January, then we got to look at February. But you're not going to look at February because that's going to be in Australia, and then we get to March, and that's Ramadan, and you're not going to fight in April because that means you would have had them in training during Ramadan, which you're not going to do. That brings us to May, and now we're looking at 11 months. It's disgusting. It's annoying. Fight for your fucking title if you want to be great. If you want to be great, fight for your title. One of the things I don't like Israel Adesanya at all, but I cannot deny the fact that this guy made his own legacy by going out there and actively fighting. Now, I know it was like kicking at range in the cage most of the time, but he went out there and he stepped in that octagon and he sold pay-per-views and he fought and he defended his title, even though he lost to Whitaker. But, like, I can't believe I'm sitting here defending an Israel Adesanya and like a Kamaru Usman, the same thing, and I actually like Usman, but it's annoying, dude. Like, I don't know why these champions won't fucking turn around and fight. Kudos to Bilal. 5 months turning around fighting for his title. 5 months isn't even a ridiculous amount of time, but the fact that he is being active, that gives me most of the respect in the utmost respect in the world for the guy. And I can't believe I'm praising a dude for defending his title after just 5 months. I can't believe that's the praise. That's the state we're in the UFC right now. But this is the matchmaking card. Just to run it back, it's Islam versus Arman in the main event. Sick main event, the rematch. Merab versus Umar in the co-main event. 5-round feature fight, BMF number 1 contenders fight for Poirier Hooker. Even the winner of this can just get Max. I'm honestly cool with that. And then Aldo versus Cejudo, Legends fight. Jalen Turner versus Joel Alvarez, a sick fight to open up the main card. You got a Legends fight in retirement, a ranked heavyweight fight here, a ranked women's strawweight fight here, banger of a prospect fight here. This is the UFC 311 card. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe.